What's up everybody, my name is Derek. Today we're going to do a review on this welding machine behind me. It's the YesWelder Flux 135. Alright, so we're here at the front of the machine. Let's just talk duty cycle real quick. They have some pretty bold claims about this machine. They say at 135 amps it has a 60% duty cycle. Given that they're given an amperage range, I'm assuming that we're talking about stick welding here. And this is probably going to vary with the different processes that you run. So they say at 104 amps, it's 100%. To me, that's a pretty bold claim. I know that the Century FC90 I used to have was like 30% at the max capacity. So these are some seemingly pretty nice duty cycles that they're advertising on this machine. I'd suspect that they're a little bit lower, but keep in mind this is a 110 volt machine. I'm not a commercial welder and I'm not an industrial welder. The point is that I've never hit the duty cycle on this thing. The vast majority of the jobs that I'm going to do with this machine, I'm not going to hit the duty cycle on. It's acceptable. So this machine has 4 different processes it'll run. Actually, technically, I'm sorry, 3 different processes, but they have 4 selections on the switch here. You have this push button switch here at the top left. This light will indicate up here, and that is for shielded metal arc welding or just stick welding with a stick electrode that's included with it. And then you push the button again and you get to 8mm or 30 thousandths wire. And then you push the button again, you get 9mm or 35 thousandths wire. So this machine will run 35 thousandths or 30 thousandths wire. Pretty common wires that I run that do pretty much most of the jobs I need them to. And then you have lift TIG. So this thing apparently will do lift TIG. I have never TIG welded in my life, just know that. I cannot speak to this thing's TIG welding abilities, but just know that there's no internal gas setup here, so you're going to have an external gas setup. We'll head right back up to the top here real quick. There is a pretty nice grab handle. This is a really nice portable machine. Very compact, lightweight, easy to move around, gets a lot of the jobs done. You got this plastic cover that just flips up here, and then that covers your controls here. And then again, this switch here is just a push button switch, and you're able to change what process you're running. And then you've got an LED indicator up here that just tells you have power, which this thing runs, the fan runs all the time, so you'll know that it has power based on the fan. And then you have an LED indicator for temperature here. That will tell you if you've hit the duty cycle and it's overheating. Now these 2 knobs, they're called infinity dials, which all that really means is that they'll just spin and spin forever. Basically you have 2 controls here. You have a wire feed speed control, or an amp if you're stick welding, it adjusts the amperage. And then over here, when you are wire feed welding, you're able to go +5 or -5 on the settings. And I think they go to the 1/10 of a volt or something like that you're able to adjust with it. This thing does have synergetic control if I haven't mentioned it already. This is what I think makes this machine really rise above a lot of its competitors, essentially. There's a lot of other machines at about this price point. The thing is that most of them, they're only going to be a flux core welding machine or only a stick welding machine. At this price point, being able to have the opportunity to try stick and try flux core welding and potentially TIG if you want to get yourself a gas bottle and an external gas setup. It's a good place to start figuring out what kind of welding you want to do, practicing the kind of welding you want to practice, seeing if the hobby's for you, seeing if it's something you can actually do, something you want to spend more money on. You have an opportunity here to try a few different processes for not a whole lot of money, and then you can either upgrade with one of their machines or you can go buy yourself, you know, a nice name brand machine. But anyway, in that sense, it's a very nice machine. Gives you a lot of capability for not a whole lot of money. Definitely one of the best values out there for your money, in my opinion. Speaking of best values for your money, if you want to pick this machine up, there will be a link in the description below. Go ahead, check it out, please. I'll get a small commission off of it at no expense to you. There's also going to be a 10% off discount code for you if you want to use that. So if you want to support the channel, I'd really appreciate it. Anyway, let's get back to the review. All right, so here at the bottom, you have 3 ports. Basically, this is your wire feed lead that comes out of this hole here. It's just always fixed there. One thing that would be nice to see, of course, it's going to cost extra, is if we could have like a removable wire feed lead here. It's not removable, it's fixed in place and it's always going to be there. But on the flip side of that is you have a removable ground clamp or a reversible ground clamp, because you have these DINS plugs here. So you have positive here on the left, it's kind of the red color, and negative on the black. So if you're going to be running flux core, you're definitely going to want that ground clamp set on the positive side, because this runs at DC electrode negative. That means that your welding electrode here is going to be negative, and it's just the way flux core has to be run. If you run it in positive, it's just simply not going to provide you good welds, no good penetration, anything like that. So make sure that on the DC machines, on this machine, you're running with the electrode on negative and the ground clamp on positive. So these are really modular. You have, I think they're 25 millimeter DINS plugs, if I remember right. So you have the ability to change the electrodes out. You can get longer leads, things like that. And it's just that easy to plug your electrodes in. It's a nice setup. Most machines, especially these Chinese machines, are running on this kind of a setup these days. Again, it would be nice to have a removable wire feed welding lead, but on these really cheap, inexpensive machines, that's typically not a feature that you get. On this one, there's a side door, and when I first saw these, I got really excited because I thought there'd be enough space in here to run a 10-pound spool. Unfortunately, there's not. You're going to be limited at the 1 and 2 pound spools. I personally weld a lot of Blue Demon welding wire. I have pretty good luck with it, and it's a lot cheaper than the Lincoln stuff. Let's talk about the wire feed mechanism here. This is something that in my little bit of time welding with this machine, which isn't actually that little, probably a lot more than a lot of people reviewing these machines, I did actually experience a small problem. I don't know if it's the wire, I don't know if it's the liner, because this thing is going to be pretty standard across all of these really cheap, inexpensive flux core welders. They pretty much all run this plastic, identical wire feed mechanism. So you'll notice that my cap's off. That's because I had to fiddle with it. Actually, the last time I was using it, I was running on some really thin, rusty pipe that made up a cattle panel. And what I was having problems with is when it was on the lower wire feed speed, because I was welding pretty thin material, rusty thin material, I was having trouble getting the wire through to be fed through up through the electrode to weld. It was kind of inconsistent, but as I turned it up a little bit, as I was changing places I was welding, that really seemed to change. So don't take that as an official problem with this thing. Like I said, these things are standard across a lot of these cheap machines. I never had this one looks identical to the one that was in the old machine, and I never had that problem. It could be the wire, it could be the liner, it could just be that things need to just be reset up in here. I do have, somebody might accuse me of running the wrong wheel. This is a 35 thousandths wire spool, and I have the 35 thousandths wheel set on there. Somebody might also try to say, well, dummy, you don't have the cap on there. I know I don't have the cap on there. It's been taken off because I did have problems while it was on there. That can kind of be contributed to the wire spool being too tight, and that's definitely possible. You want to keep this nut backed off just enough, but still tight enough that it doesn't just unspool itself and you get a wire bird's nest in there. So anyway, guys, the backside's pretty simple. You have a switch here right next to the inlet power where you plug in. It's got pretty thick gauge, decent material for the plug and the wire up to the plug. And then just a fan back here to help keep the machine cool. Pretty simple on the back, but you'll notice there's no gas inlet here, which there usually is on the back sides of wire feed machines for you to run a gas setup. So what do I think of this machine overall? I think as far as value goes, it's probably one of the best in competition. And I pretty much say, as far as I know, they are offering you the most value for your money. Pretty much plain and simple. Keep in mind the little issue I had with the drive roll. That might be something to consider, but again, that wire feed mechanism in there is standard across the board of cheap flux core welders. So I probably need to just take care of something on my end. It's probably me. If you have the extra cash to shell out for a better machine, number one, that's 220 volts if you have access to 220 volts. 110's available everywhere. If you don't have a great 110 setup, consider your limit being about 1/8 inch. A really good 20 amp, maybe 30 amp circuit for 110 volts, probably at least 3/16 of an inch, I'd imagine you would be able to do. YesWelder, I think, is a pretty decent company. They've been great to work with for the couple of years I've been working with them now. They're very responsive. Their customer service team, as far as I can tell, because I actually have dealt with them a little bit, is actually pretty good for a Chinese company. These guys are serious. They're out here in the welding world really trying to offer pretty decent machines at pretty decent prices. So I guess that's all pretty much to say that if you can afford a much better machine, maybe consider getting a better YesWelder machine, or maybe just consider getting, if you really got the money to blow. I think most people are probably like me, a little bit more budget minded, looking for more of a value tool. I'm not saying that this is going to be the best bang for your buck for long-term durability, and who knows, it might be. I've got a few cheap Chinese machines that I've had for a couple of years now, and they work pretty dang good, and I use them pretty regularly. You know, just overall, I think it's a good machine. If you want to pick it up, if you're really leaning this way, there's a lot of good things about it. If you're leaning maybe another way, hopefully you're looking at just a better quality machine all the way around, whether it is a better quality YesWelder or just a whole different name brand altogether. Remember, the link's in the description below to help the channel out. Costs you nothing extra. You get a 10% coupon down there in the description below. If you use that link to purchase this machine, I get a small commission. It helps the channel out. Really appreciate you guys watching. If you're not a subscriber, go down, click subscribe. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up while you're down there. And as always, thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you in the next video.